All right, let's get started. For today, I want you to think of yourself as an architect. But you're not designing a building, you're designing a society, a thriving, harmonious one. This is your guide to social engineering, O-level style. So let's get to work.
So, here's our master blueprint for today. We're going to start with the core challenge, then get a handle on our diverse materials. After that, we'll look at the policy blueprints, gear up with our inspector's toolkit, and finally get you ready to build your own rock-solid argument.
Okay, first things first. Any great architect has to understand the problem they're trying to solve. For us, it's a big one. How do you actually achieve social harmony in a world that is, by its very nature, just incredibly diverse?
Every project needs a brief, and here's ours. The big question is, can social harmony even be achieved? Now, this breaks it down into 3 critical phases you really need to get. First, you've got the foundation materials. That's the diverse identities of everyone in the society. Second, the structural dynamics, basically how these different groups interact with each other. And third, the engineering solutions. These are the policies that hold the whole thing together. The key exam tip here is that your job is to evaluate how all these pieces work together in the real world.
You know, a building is only as strong as its materials. Well, in our society, the materials are people, with all their complex identities. So your first job as an architect is to really understand their unique properties.
Now this is the iceberg model, and it's absolutely crucial. Above the water, you see the obvious stuff, race, ethnicity, but the real weight, the real structural force is hidden way down below the surface. We're talking about massive forces like socioeconomic status and religion. The biggest insight for any architect is this: you cannot design just for what you see on the surface. The deepest, most powerful tensions almost always come from below the waterline. And this slide just illustrates so brilliantly that diversity isn't just some problem you have to manage, it's actually a huge structural advantage you can use. When you build these bridges between communities, look what happens. On one side, you get this amazing cultural exchange, food, art, traditions, all blending together. And on the other, you get this powerhouse of knowledge and skills that drives the whole economy forward. It's a win-win.
Of course, any good architect also has to understand where things can go wrong, the potential points of failure. This pipeline here shows the dangerous path to a total structural fracture. It starts with stereotypes. That's like having a flawed blueprint. This can lead to prejudice, which is like a pressure buildup in the system. And if you don't do anything about it, you end up with discrimination, the actual action that causes a real crack in your society.
Okay, so let's move on to the actual blueprints. This is where we see how different policy choices can shape the final structure of your society. This is where your design philosophy really comes to life.
So, as the architect, you've basically got 2 primary blueprints to work from. On the left, you have assimilation, we call it the melting pot, where all the different identities are sort of melted down to create one single uniform culture. Then on the right, you have integration, the salad bowl, where all the diverse groups keep their unique flavors but are still part of the same dish, united by a common set of national values. 2 very, very different designs.
This policy matrix is your key evaluation tool. Just look at the real-world examples. France, with its strict secularism in public life, versus Singapore, with its policies on bilingualism and ethnic integration. And you've got to notice the trade-offs. Assimilation can create resentment, but on the other hand, integration needs constant work to make sure groups don't just self-segregate. You have to use this to weigh which policy really creates better harmony.
And here's another huge design choice. How do you actually pay for your social infrastructure? You could go for a government-financed approach, with high taxes funding a really strong safety net. Or you could use a shared responsibility model. That's where the government gives subsidies, but people also have to co-pay, which encourages more self-reliance. Both have their pros, both have their challenges. It's a balancing act.
So here's the crucial point, the big takeaway. Social harmony is not a natural state of being. It's not something that just happens. It is an engineered bridge. It's built on these foundation pillars of diverse identities. It has to withstand the constant load of friction and competition, and it's held together by the engineering solutions we choose, our policies. And just like any bridge, it needs continuous maintenance.
Okay, so you've seen the materials and you've seen the blueprints. But, every good architect is also a sharp inspector. So now, it's time to equip you with the toolkit you need to analyze sources and evaluate arguments like a pro.
First tool in your kit is the PEL framework. Think of it like an engine with 4 gears that have to work together. Your point is the starter motor. It gets things going. Your evidence is the fuel. The explanation is the engine itself, connecting the two. And the link? Those are the wheels, tying everything back to the main question. And that warning is serious.
If even one of those gears is missing, the whole machine just jams, and your argument goes absolutely nowhere.
And this is what it looks like when it's done perfectly. See how it flows? The point about meritocracy is made right at the start. Then, the evidence, specific EduSave schemes, is brought in to back it up. The explanation shows why this system motivates people. And finally, the link connects it all back to the country's progress. That is how you write a high-scoring paragraph.
Next up, a seriously cool tool, the cross-referencing laser beam. Here's how it works. You take a claim from one source, that's your laser beam. Then you shoot it through the prism of another source. What happens? Well, the light will either be corroborated, which makes the claim stronger, or it'll be fractured, revealing a contradiction, a bias, or a totally different perspective. Okay, let's see this laser in action. If we compare Germany's and Singapore's approach to upskilling workers, we find a similarity right away. Both agree that the purpose is to collaborate with industry. But the laser also reveals a really important difference. They're targeting different people. Germany is focusing on its youth, while Singapore is targeting mid-career workers. This kind of nuanced analysis is exactly what inspectors are looking for.
So there we have it. We've reviewed the materials, we've explored the blueprints, and we've filled your inspection toolkit. The foundation has been laid. Now, it's your turn to take charge as the master architect.
The blueprint is officially in your hands now. You have the analytical tools, you have the concepts. The only question left is, how are you going to use them? How will you inspect the evidence, weigh the arguments, and construct the absolute strongest case for your design? Go build your argument.